Hey there, what's going on? Good. Hey, so listen, I hear that there's this game that purports to be a civilization game that has all the fixings. Workers, resources, leaders, militaries, happiness, corruption, consumption, multiple ages, the whole shebang. But get this, there's no map. I know, right? Let's take a look at the rulebook and see what— oh God, so many words! We need someone who knows how this thing works. Fortunately, I do. Rather than boring everyone to tears with rules explanations or individual card breakdowns, I'm going to try giving a broad overview of the main components of the game. I'd like to get this video wrapped up before the invention of cold fusion, I think. Let's start with the thing you'll be staring at most of the game. The player mat has areas for population, resources, and technologies. The yellow and blue bits represent different things based on where they are. These yellow tokens count as people up until the point they're placed on one of these technology cards. At that point, they're considered buildings and produce all the stuff associated with that technology. The same thing goes for blue tokens. If a blue token is on a mine, it's considered a resource that you can use to build stuff. If it's on a farm, then it's considered food that you can use to feed people. Each technology type has an amount that every blue token placed on it is worth, but as we'll see later, it's a good idea to invest in more efficient technologies. Yellow and blue tokens are pulled from their respective token banks. It costs food to bring a worker up from the bank into your worker pool, but you need resources to build farms to produce the food. Resources aren't the only way to pay for stuff though. There's also science, which is tracked on the main board, which we'll look at right now. There are three things tracked here on the main board: science, strength, and culture. Science is spent on new technologies and new governments. Strength is useful for conquering territories, taking out your aggressions on other players, and waging war. Culture is the game's term for victory points. At the top of the main board is a dim sum style parade of civil cards. Players start the game with 4 civil actions per turn, which are the kind that allow you to take cards from the board, among other things. The closer a card is to the left side of the row, the cheaper it is. Depending on the number of players, cards in the leftmost spaces get pulled off the board, and the leftovers slide in to take their place. These cards, along with this deck of military cards, give you the tools that you need to help yourself and hinder other people. The civil cards include technologies, which produce various resources and currencies, leaders and wonders, which can give you special abilities, and action cards, which are a one-time shot in the arm. On the military side, you have new territories to conquer, aggressions and wars to wage, as well as pacts to seal with other players. I won't go into too much detail, but most of these actions require the victor to have sacrificed the most military units out of everyone else in order to succeed. So, beating the snot out of a well-defended player could end up leaving you open to counterattack. Fortunately, players get military actions that are separate from their civil actions, so you don't have to decide between drawing cards or boosting your strength. There are also event cards that can be played, but they aren't played directly. Instead, players seed a face-down pile of cards in order to resolve the top card of the current event deck. Let's take a glimpse at a couple more mechanics and then we'll wrap things up. Let's say that you have a basic mine which produces 1 resource for every worker. Now let's say you fill that mine full of workers. If you produce too many resources, you'll have to deal with corruption. You might produce 10 resources per turn, but you'd then have to immediately pay 2 or 4 of those resources back, for example. The solution to this is to invest in more efficient mines in which a single blue token counts for, say, 3 resources instead of 1. The same concept applies to your population. The emptier your bank, the higher your population, and the more food that they need. If you can't feed your people, though, you lose culture points, so you need to make sure that doesn't happen. Finally, like all good Civ games, you need to keep your people happy. This is also tied to how empty your population bank is. The bank is divided into chunks, and for every empty chunk you have, you need to make sure you're producing that many happy faces. If you fall short, you can make up for it by having people in your worker pool, which is where you usually keep people you haven't assigned to a job yet. If you still come up short, then your farms and mines don't produce anything for that round. I've never actually seen someone have to deal with this, but I'm pretty sure it sucks. The game spans 3 ages with a mini-age at the beginning and end, and there are rules for removing certain cards from the game once they've reached a certain age. Whoever has the most culture points at the end wins. So there, we've covered how all the different pieces fit together. How does it end up playing? I would say it comes as close as you can get to a civilization game without a map. You can have a game with population, resources, happiness, technology, and even military, but there's just something about seeing your sprawling empire on a map. You want to move your units around and expand your borders to areas that you see fit. You want to build up your forces and steamroll someone else's settlement. But what you don't want is to deal with tons and tons of miniatures and all the extra time that a game like that would take. And that's where this game totally fits the bill. This is all about building a machine and fine-tuning it. Every action you take has consequences, and it's really satisfying to realize that you don't have to worry about feeding your people anymore, and you can really focus on other parts of your empire. I don't know much about fixing cars, but I feel like people who like that sort of thing would like a game like this. People who wouldn't like this game, though, are people with giant sausage fingers. Even I have problems moving these tiny little bits around. I'm not sure if they intentionally tried to fit all this game into such a small box, but this is a bit extreme. I'd be willing to have a bigger box if it meant an increase in bit size. And, hang on. A bunch of my resources just rolled off the table. Again. Finally, I have to once again kvetch about the price of a game. The retail price for this game is something like 60 or 70 bucks. Even online stores have it in the $40 to $50 range. That just seems excessive to me. I wonder if Fred/Eagle aren't trying to artificially keep the prices of their products up in an attempt to make themselves appear like some kind of premium brand. Dimmocker has a comparable amount of stuff in the box, and that game is considerably cheaper. I just don't get it. But enough about that. It's kind of irrelevant anyway. If you're watching this, then you want to know what I think of the game regardless of how much it costs. I paid 50 bucks for it, and I really dig it. It's a very robust experience. I'll let that description sit with you. Robust. Like a fine wine. Or something.